And Lord Balaram's touring the sacred places. Lord Balaram prepared himself to meet the demon Balvala. At the time when the demon usually attacked the sacred place, there appeared a great hailstorm. The whole sky became covered with dust, and the atmosphere became surcharged with a filthy smell. Just after this, the mischievous demon Balvala began to shower torrents of stool and urine and other impure substances on the arena of sacrifice. After this onslaught, the demon himself appeared with a great trident in his hand. He was a gigantic person, and his black body was like a huge mass of carbon. His hair, his beard, and his mustache appeared reddish like copper, and because of his great beard and mustache, his mouth appeared dangerous and fierce. As soon as he saw the demon, Lord Balaram prepared to attack him. He first considered how he could smash the great demon to pieces. Lord Balaram then called for his plough and club, and they immediately appeared before him. The demon Balvala was flying in the sky, and at the first opportunity, Lord Balaram dragged him down with his plough and angrily smashed the demon's head with his club. Balaram's striking fractured the demon's forehead, making blood flow profusely. Screaming loudly, the demon, who had been such a great disturbance to the pious Brahmanas, fell to the ground like a great mountain with a red oxide peak being struck and smashed to the ground by a thunderbolt. The inhabitants of Naimisharanya, learned sages and Brahmanas, became most pleased by seeing this, and they offered their respectful prayers to Lord Balaram. They offered their heartfelt blessings to the Lord, and all agreed that none of Lord Balaram's attempts to do something would ever be a failure. The sages and Brahmanas then performed a ceremonial bathing of Lord Balaram, just as the demigods bathe King Indra when he is victorious over the demons. The Brahmanas and sages honored Lord Balaram by presenting him with first-class new clothing and ornaments and the lotus garland of victory. This garland was the reservoir of all beauty and was everlasting. It was never to be dried up. After this incident, Lord Balaram took permission from the Brahmanas assembled at Naimisharanya and, accompanied by other Brahmanas, went to the bank of the river Kaushiki. After taking his bath in this holy place, he proceeded toward the river Sarayu and visited the source of the river. Traveling on the bank of the Sarayu river, he gradually reached Prayag, where there is a confluence of three rivers, the Ganges, Yamuna, and Sarasvati. Here also he took his bath, and then he worshipped in the local temples of the demigods and, as enjoined in the Vedic literature, offered oblations to the forefathers and sages. He gradually reached the ashram of the sage Pulaha, and from there went to the rivers Gandaki and Gomati. After this, he took his bath in the river Vipasha. Then he gradually came to the bank of the Shona River. The Shona River is still running as one of the big rivers in Bihar province. He also took his bath there and performed the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. He continued his travels and gradually came to the pilgrimage city of Gaya, where there is a celebrated Vishnu temple. According to the advice of his father, Vasudev, he offered oblations to the forefathers in this Vishnu temple. From here he traveled to the delta of the Ganges, where the sacred river Ganges mixes with the Bay of Bengal. This sacred place is called Ganga Sagar, and at the end of January every year there is still a great assembly of saintly persons and pious men, just as there is an assembly of saintly persons in Prayag every year called the Magha Mela Fair. After finishing his bathing and ritualistic ceremonies at Ganga Sagar, Lord Balaram proceeded toward the mountain known as Mahendra Parvata, where he met Parashurama, an incarnation of Lord Krishna, and offered him respect by bowing down before him. After this, Lord Balaram turned towards southern India and visited the banks of the river Godavari. After taking his bath in the river Godavari and performing the necessary ritualistic ceremonies, he gradually visited the other rivers, the Vena, Pampa, and Bhimarati. On the bank of the river Bhimarati is the deity called Swami Kartikeya. After visiting Kartikeya, Lord Balaram gradually proceeded to Shailapura, a pilgrimage city in the province of Maharashtra. Shailapura is one of the biggest districts in Maharashtra province. He then gradually proceeded toward Dravida Desh. Southern India is divided into 5 parts, called Pancha Dravida. Northern India is also divided into 5 parts, called Panchagoda. All the important acharyas of the modern age, namely Sankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbarka, advented themselves in the Dravida provinces. Lord Chaitanya, however, appeared in Bengal, which is part of the 5 Gauda Deshas. The most important place of pilgrimage in southern India, or Dravida, is Venkatachala, commonly known as Balaji. After visiting this place, Lord Balaram proceeded toward Vishnu Kanchi, and from there he proceeded on the bank of the Kaveri. While going to Vishnu Kanchi, he visited Shiva Kanchi. Lord Balaram took his bath in the river Kaveri. Then he gradually reached Rangakshetra. The biggest Vishnu temple in the world is in Rangakshetra, and the Vishnu deity there is celebrated as Ranganath. There is a similar temple of Ranganath in Vrindavan. Although not as big as the temple in Rangakshetra, it is the biggest in Vrindavan. After visiting Rangakshetra, Lord Balaram gradually proceeded towards Madurai, commonly known as the Mathura of southern India. After visiting this place, he gradually proceeded towards Setubandha, the place where Lord Ramachandra constructed the stone bridge from India to Lanka. In this particularly holy place, Lord Balaram distributed 10,000 cows to the local Brahmana priests. It is the Vedic custom that when a rich visitor goes to any place of pilgrimage, he gives the local priests houses, cows, ornaments, and garments as gifts of charity. This system of visiting places of pilgrimage and providing the local Brahmana priests with all necessities of life has greatly deteriorated in this age of Kali. The richest section of the population, because of its degradation in Vedic culture, is no longer attracted by these places of pilgrimage, and the Brahmana priests who depended on such visitors have also deteriorated in their professional duty of helping the visitors. These Brahmana priests in the places of pilgrimage are called Panda or Pandit. This means that they were formerly very learned Brahmanas and used to guide the visitors in all details of the purpose of coming there, and thus both the visitors and the priests benefited by mutual cooperation. It is clear from the description of Srimad Bhagavatam that when Lord Balaram was visiting the different places of pilgrimage, he properly followed the Vedic system. After distributing cows at Setubandha, Lord Balaram proceeded toward the Kirtamala and Tamrapani rivers. These 2 rivers are celebrated as sacred, and Lord Balaram bathed in them both. He then proceeded toward Malaya Hill. This hill is very great, and it is said to be one of 7 peaks called the Malaya Hills. The great sage Agastya used to live there, and Lord Balaram visited him and offered him his respects by bowing down before him. After taking the sage's blessings, Lord Balaram, with the sage's permission, proceeded toward the Indian Ocean. At the point of the cape, known today as Cape Comorin, is a big temple of goddess Durga, who is known there as Kanya Kumari. This temple of Kanya Kumari was also visited by Lord Ramachandra, and therefore it is to be understood that the temple has been existing for millions of years. From there, Lord Balaram went on to visit the pilgrimage city known as Falguna Tirtha, which is on the shore of the Indian Ocean or the Southern Ocean. Falguna Tirtha is celebrated because Lord Vishnu, in his incarnation of Ananta, is lying there. From Falguna Tirtha, Lord Balaram went on to visit another pilgrimage spot known as Panchapsarasa. There also he bathed according to the regulative principles and observed the ritualistic ceremonies. This site is also celebrated as a shrine of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, Lord Balaram distributed 10,000 cows to the local Brahmana priests. From Cape Comorin, Lord Balaram turned toward Kerala. The country of Kerala is still existing in southern India under the name of South Kerala. After visiting this place, he came to Gokarna Tirtha, where Lord Shiva is constantly worshipped. Balaram then visited the temple of Arya Devi, which is completely surrounded by water. From that island, he went on to a place known as Surparaka. After this, he bathed in the rivers known as Tapi, Payoshni, and Nirvindya, and then he came to the forest known as Dandakaranya. This is the same Dandakaranya forest where Lord Ramachandra lived while in exile. Lord Balaram next came to the bank of the river Narmada, the biggest river in central India. On the bank of the sacred Narmada is a pilgrimage spot known as Mahismati Puri. After bathing there according to regulative principles, Lord Balaram returned to Prabhasha Tirtha, where he had begun his journey. When Lord Balaram returned to Prabhasha Tirtha, he heard from the Brahmanas that most of the Kshatriyas in the battle of Kurukshetra had been killed. Balaram felt relieved to hear that the burden of the world had been reduced. Lord Krishna and Balaram appeared on this earth to lessen the burden of military strength created by the ambitious Kshatriya kings. This is the way of materialistic life. Not being satisfied by the absolute necessities of life, people ambitiously create extra demands, and their illegal desires are checked by the laws of nature, or the laws of God, appearing as famine, war, pestilence, and similar catastrophes. Lord Balaram heard that although most of the Kshatriyas had been killed, the Kurus were still engaged in fighting. Therefore, he returned to the battlefield just on the day Bhimasena and Duryodhana were engaged in a personal duel. As the well-wisher of both of them, Lord Balaram wanted to stop them, but they would not stop. When Lord Balaram appeared on the scene, King Yudhishthir and his younger brothers Nakul and Sahadev, as well as Lord Krishna and Arjuna, immediately offered him their respectful obeisances, but they did not speak at all. The reason they were silent was that Lord Balaram was somewhat affectionate toward Duryodhana, who had learned from Balaramji the art of fighting with a club. When the fighting was going on, King Yudhishthir and others thought that Balaram might have come there to say something in favor of Duryodhana, and they therefore remained silent. Both Duryodhana and Bhimasena were very enthusiastic in fighting with clubs, and in the midst of a large audience, each very skillfully tried to strike the other. While attempting to do so, they appeared to be dancing, but nonetheless, it was clear that both of them were very angry. Lord Balaram, wanting to stop the fighting, said, "My dear King Duryodhana and Bhimasena, I know that both of you are great fighters and are well known in the world as great heroes, but still I think that Bhimasena is superior to Duryodhana in bodily strength. On the other hand, Duryodhana is superior in the art of fighting with a club. Taking this into consideration, my opinion is that neither of you is inferior to the other in fighting. Under the circumstances, there is very little chance that one of you will be defeated by the other. Therefore, I request you not to waste your time fighting in this way. I wish you to stop this unnecessary fight." The good instruction given by Lord Balaram to Bhimasena and Duryodhana was intended for the equal benefit of both of them, but they were so enwrapped in anger against each other that they could remember only their long-standing personal enmity. Each thought only of killing the other, and they did not give much importance to the instruction of Lord Balaram. Both of them then became like madmen in remembering the strong accusations and ill behavior they had exchanged with each other. Lord Balaram, being able to understand the destiny awaiting them, was not eager to go further in the matter. Therefore, instead of staying, he decided to return to the city of Dwarka. When he returned to Dwarka, he was received with great jubilation by relatives and friends, headed by King Ugrasena and other elder persons, who all came forward to welcome him. After this, he again went to the holy place of pilgrimage at Naimisharanya, and the sages, saintly persons, and brahmanas all stood up to receive him. They understood that Lord Balaram, although a Kshatriya, was now retired from the fighting business. The brahmanas and sages, who were always for peace and tranquility, were very much pleased at this. All of them embraced Balaram with great affection and induced him to perform various kinds of sacrifices in that sacred spot of Naimisharanya. Actually, Lord Balaram had no business performing the sacrifices recommended for ordinary human beings. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he himself is the enjoyer of all such sacrifices. As such, his exemplary action in performing sacrifices was only to give a lesson to the common man, to show how one should abide by the injunctions of the Vedas. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Balaram, instructed the sages and saintly persons at Naimisharanya on the subject matter of the living entity's relationship with this cosmic manifestation, on how one should regard this whole universe, and on how one should relate with the cosmos in order to achieve the highest goal of perfection. This supreme goal is the understanding that the whole cosmic manifestation rests on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also all-pervading, even within the minutest atom, by the function of his Paramatma feature. Lord Balaram then took the Avabrita bath, which is taken after finishing sacrificial performances. After taking his bath, he dressed himself in new silken garments and decorated himself with beautiful jewelry. Amidst his relatives and friends, he appeared to be a shining full moon amidst the luminaries in the sky. Lord Balaram is the personality of Godhead, Ananta himself. Therefore, he is beyond. We can only explain his activities as the Lord's pastimes. No one can even estimate the extent of the unlimited demonstrations of his pastimes, because he is all-powerful. Lord Balaram is the original Vishnu. Therefore, anyone remembering these pastimes of Lord Balaram in the morning and evening will certainly become a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus his life will be successful in all respects. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 79th chapter of Krishna, the liberation of Balvala, and Lord Balaram's touring the sacred places.
Thank you very much. Is it too warm in here? Would you like some more air? Or yes? Okay. Yeah. We could use the fan or the AC turned on for this one. This one. It's the lowest setting. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Little feedback is there. Hare Krishna. Good. Do we have any water here? Maybe not. Om Ajnana Timidandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Miditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Pistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Tadati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam, Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha, Shri Rupam Shagrajatam, Sagana Raganatan Mitam Stam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Savatutam, Parijana Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padam, Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gauri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pamanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. As described in the previous chapter, Lord Balaram had killed the Romaharshan Sutta, a Brahmin, and therefore he was asked to undergo the penance of killing this demon, Balval, and traveling to holy places for 1 year. So now we find Balval killed. Quite. I'll take it. Thank you very much. Excuse me.
Quite nice.
So Lord Balaram made quick work of him using his plow and his club. Naturally, the Brahmins were pleased with him. And then Lord Balaram went traveling. In India, there are so many places of pilgrimage, tirthasthans, and even at the time of Krishna and Balaram, there were so many tirthasthans. It's mentioned that Kurukshetra was a holy place since before the time of the Kurukshetra war. And similarly here, various holy places are mentioned as existing even before the time of Lord Balaram. Our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited so many of these places also when he toured South India on the plea of looking for his elder brother Vishwarup, who he knew had already expired, and actually for the sake of benefiting the people of South India. In 1985, 1986, a Sankirtan, ISKCON Sankirtan Padayatra led by His Holiness Lokanath Maharaj traveled to many of these places, and I also got the opportunity to take part for a good part of the time. Lord Balaram, while visiting these, I can take some more too. These places followed the Vedic ritualistic customs.
There's also normal water, whatever you prefer.
He followed the Vedic ritualistic customs and gave charity and so on. We can give some notes about some of these places. The Son River in Bihar. Yeah, I won't say anything about that. Gaya. There are two places, Bodh Gaya and Gaya. Gaya, Bodh Gaya is the place where Lord Buddha is said to have attained samadhi or nirvana, and there are many Buddhist temples there from different sects. But some distance away from Bodh Gaya is Gaya itself. It's on a river called Valgunadi, which means the dry river. Actually, it's like a dry river, but there's water underneath. It's not like the Jamuna where there's water flowing, but there's like a riverbed and there's water beneath. So that's the Valgunadi, and there's a temple there of Lord Vishnu, which is the place where people go to offer pinda, offer a ritualistic observance for their departed forefathers. There's a temple there called Vishnupad Mandir, which is notable for having a footprint of Lord Vishnu, which is the principal object worshipped in the temple. Gangasagara, I've never been to, but there's a Gangasagara Mela every year, as mentioned in the text. And there's I think our Jayadvaita Maharaj has organized annually for ISKCON devotees also to take part in the Ganga Sagara Mela. This Venkatachala is the most important, most noted place of pilgrimage in South India. It's also known as Tirupati Balaji, or Venkateshwara is the deity worshipped there, and so many pilgrims come to Tirupati to offer respects to the Lord and take darshan of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada also visited the Tirupati Mandir. He appreciated it. The Mandir is run by a body called the TTD, Tirupati Devasthanams, managed by an officer of the Indian Administrative Service, top-class officers, and it's a very important organization, partly because people give so much money there. Every day people give huge amounts in donations, and so that all has to be accounted for and properly spent. Part of the problem of the Tirupati Devasthanam is they don't know what to do with all the money. They wind up spending it on various new projects and philanthropic activities. Srila Prabhupada, when he was there, suggested that Balaji's money should be spent for spreading Balaji's message, the message of Bhagavad-Gita, as it is, of course. So that was his point. But otherwise, he appreciated very much the good management of the temple and recommended that we could learn from that. Madurai is another important holy place. Setu Banda, where Lord Ramchandra constructed his bridge. Prabhupada mentions that previously there were learned Brahmins on all of these places, and they would give guidance to the pilgrims and spiritual instructions for the pilgrims. And the pilgrims would reward the priests with contributions And so everything went on in that way. But in Kali Yuga, the so-called pandits or pandas may no longer be so learned, and the visitors may no longer be so generous. So now things have deteriorated, and so often the pandas or pandits just give some instructions on performing some rituals, and for this much money you get this performed, for this much money you get that performed. Om 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 Om. There's not much enlightenment associated with that. They just perform the rituals, chant the mantras, take the money, and everybody goes home happy. But as Prabhupada mentioned, now fewer people go, and people who go, their ritual is to take selfies and so on. They're less interested in even the rituals. Even here in Vrindavan, people come and they're more interested in taking videos than taking instruction. Everything has sort of deteriorated in regard to this ancient system. Cape Comorin, Kanyakumari is the southernmost tip of India. You get the Bay of Bengal on one side, you get the Indian Ocean on the other side. And the deity there is Kanyakumari. She's Devi. The story is that she was supposed to marry Lord Shiva, but I forget the details, but Lord Shiva stood her up. He didn't show. So she's still there as Kumari, an unmarried girl. So Lord Balaram returns to Prabhas-kshetra. He was happy to hear that the burden of the world in the form of so many unwanted warriors had been reduced. And he returned to Kurukshetra just on the day that Bhimasen and Duryodhana were engaged in a personal duel. Lord Balaram is also known as Duryodhana Guru. We mentioned this the other day because he taught Duryodhana, or Duryodhana came to the city of Mithila, if I remember, to learn the art of club fighting from Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram, of course, is the most expert in club fighting. And by the grace of Lord Balaram, the Duryodhana also became expert. So this fight was going on between Bhima and Duryodhana, and Lord Balaram wanted to stop it. When he came, everyone else fell silent. The Pandavas became silent. Krishna didn't say anything, because they thought that maybe Balaram has come to help Duryodhana. Some more water. To help Duryodhana, because Duryodhana was his pet student. So on the one side, they favored the Pandavas, but on the other side, they didn't want to get in trouble with Lord Balaram, or they were concerned about what Lord Balaram might do, so they just kept silent. And Balaram, as we hear, tried to reason with both parties. Neither of you, you're equally matched. Bhimasena is stronger, but Duryodhana is more expert with the club. So neither of you is better than the other. So why fight needlessly? That was his request. But Bhima and Duryodhana were immersed in anger at one another. And when you're angry, you can't take good instructions. They were immersed in animosity and remembering. They became like madmen, remembering the strong accusations and ill behavior they'd exchanged with one another. And here it's interesting, Balaram was not eager to go further in the matter because he understood that destiny was awaiting them. That means sometimes the outcome is already written. A sagacious person, a wise person sees that there's nothing that can be done here. The outcome is already decided by destiny. The outcome is already decided by destiny, or the hand of God. We have an expression in America, you can't fight City Hall. It means when the government's decided to do something, there's nothing that you can do to turn it around. You can't fight City Hall. So the ultimate form of City Hall is destiny. When something is decided by destiny, nothing that we might attempt can change it. So sometimes it's better just to recognize, and this is what it is. Nothing is going to reverse this. Nothing is going to. There's nothing I can do to change the course of fate. And so Balaram just decided, okay, let me go back to Dwarka. So he goes back to Dwarka. And again went to Naimisharanya. And there he was honored by the sages, and Lord Balaram instructed them about the relationship of the living beings with the cosmic manifestation and how one should act to achieve perfection. All right, any comments or questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm just thinking what to do when a war begins. To follow the example of Lord Balaram and go on pilgrimage, or stay in a holy place, or stay in a war zone and do sankirtan and preaching.
What to do when a war breaks out? Do you go on pilgrimage? Do you stay and do sankirtan? What do you do? That is for you to decide with the guidance of your spiritual superiors or spiritual colleagues. There's not necessarily one right decision. One might take the opportunity to get out of harm's way. One might take the opportunity to get others out of harm's way. One might stay and try to help the people who are in the midst of the war. That depends on various considerations.
Maybe Srila Prabhupada gives some instructions and how to behave in such situations.
I don't recall any instructions about that. I don't recall any instructions about that. Of course, it was interesting in the Prabhupada's early days. Did we turn on that fan? Is it running? Okay. Is it too hot? Would you like more air? Yes, they would like more air. During much of Srila Prabhupada's, or a good part of Prabhupada's time in America, especially when he was getting started, this Vietnam War was going on. And there was a compulsory draft in America. The young men could be compelled to join the military. And Srila Prabhupada sought exemption for his students, but it was interesting the grounds on which he did so. One, we have a status in America called conscientious objector, in which a person says, well, I'm unwilling to fight because fighting is against my moral principles, my religious principles, my ethical principles, and therefore I would seek exemption. And there are various religious sects that whose members seek conscientious objector status, and then they're given some alternative service to do, something not military. And Srila Prabhupada didn't seek conscientious objector status for his students. After all, Bhagavad-Gita was spoken on a battlefield, and Krishna is urging Arjuna to fight. So we're not morally opposed to war in principle. But Prabhupada sought exemption on the grounds that these students were being trained as brahmanas. Fighting is the duty of the Kshatriyas. But these men were being trained as brahmanas, priests, and as such, it would be inappropriate for them to be engaged in military service. And the devotees got exemption. I think Tosan Krishna Prabhu may have been the first to secure an exemption on those grounds. So that's what I remember Prabhupada doing as far as advice about whether to be in the war, out of the war. I don't recall anything. But certainly when these things occur, then devotees face difficult choices of that nature. Should I fight? Should I flee? Should I go preach? Should I do some sort of philanthropic work? What should I do? So I don't have a one-size-fits-all answer. Parenthetically, I can note that the devotees in Ukraine are undergoing a lot of difficulty, and Niranjan Maharaj just did an interview and talking about the situation they're in, the winter coming on and no infrastructure for providing heat, food may be a question, so many things, accommodations, devotees who need to leave, and devotees who need to stay, and they need help. So anyone who's charitably inclined can contribute for helping the Ukrainian devotees. One time, Srila Prabhupada was in an airport, I forget where, and someone had brought him some sweets, some Mahaprasadam. So Prabhupada took a little, and then he said, distribute. And the devotees sought a little more guidance. Did he mean distribute to the devotees? Did he mean distribute to the people in the airport? And Prabhupada said to the devotees, said, charity begins at home. So sometimes we see charity campaigns to feed the victims of this or that disaster. But Srila Prabhupada that wasn't his program. But to take care of the Vaishnavas, that's very much our program. Charity begins at home. Something more? Yes, Radesh.
When you went on Parikrama in '86, you saw a lot of these places, it seems. Were there any particular ones of them that stood out to you that you'd like to mention, or any of your thoughts on
well,
any
there
particular?
are so many.
Yeah, just some highlight if you have any.
Some of them are very important places. The Udupi is one place, the place of Madhvacharya. Devotees went there. Kerala in general, has many beautiful holy places. The temples there are mostly have a wooden, what would you say, facade, and in the evenings they're like planks on which little lamps are placed, so you get rows and rows and rows of lamps, and the temples look very beautiful in the evening. The one very major temple is the temple of Tiruvananthapuram, Anantapadmanabh Mandir. That's an extraordinary temple. The temples in South India are mostly big stone buildings, and when you go inside, they're generally somewhat dark. And especially the temple room itself is like cavernous and dark, and the pujaris will do an arti, and then with the arti lamps you get to get darshan of the deity. Otherwise, you can hardly make out, especially since the deities are mostly dark stone. So dark stone in a dark room, you hardly see the Lord, but when they do the arti, then you can get the darshan. And Anantapadmanabh, you go into the deity room or the temple itself, temple room, and there, as in our ISKCON temples, there are 3 large doors, as we have here in Vrindavan, 3 large doors. And you're sort of in the dark, blinking your eyes, but as your eyes adjust a little bit, you get to see that the deity is the enormous form of Lord Narayan lying on the Sheshanag with Brahma on the lotus and Lakshmi massaging the Lord's feet. And the Lord is so large that from the first door you see his feet, and from the second door you can see his chest, and from the third door you can see the Lord's face, shoulders and face. So the deity is so huge that, and the temple is sort of almost buzzing with cosmic energy. It's also said that the king of Tanjore, the local king of that area, came one day with all of his ministers and generals and offered his sword at the feet of the Lord. And then he took back the sword and thereafter ruled as the servant of the real proprietor. There's a place that Lord Chaitanya went called Sri Janardana, or it's called Varkala. There's a resort place, a beach. What is that, Kovalam Beach or something, where a lot of tourists go for sense gratification. But this is some distance away from that, and it's beautifully located. There's the temple is situated on the side of a big tank, big pool of water, many steps going up. And they dress the deity in different fashions. Sometimes the deity is dressed as Lord Nrsingadev, sometimes he's Vishnu, but sometimes as Lord Nrsingadev, sometimes as Varaha. And when we came, they dressed him as Krishna. This system is followed, I think, in other temples also, but it was noted there. And above the temple is located on a river. A river, or is it on the sea? Maybe on the sea. Yeah, there's a sea there, and then there's a little Papanashanam stream. But, and then overlooking the sea is a kind of a low bluff, a cliff, with palm trees and little guest bungalows. So Padayatra was going to stop there for a day, but we decided to stay there 2 or 3 days. Such a beautiful place. Sri Rangam is, of course, as mentioned here, the biggest temple in India. These temples are just like forts, huge places. And the Padayatra was received there with what's called Purna Kumbha, big ceremonious welcome by the Brahmins and so on, which was a big deal because generally these temples don't allow non-Hindus to enter. And in this case, they gave a, what would you say, like a state welcome practically to the devotees, including the foreign devotees. That was quite notable. And the deity is very friendly looking, you can say, but very, well, you have to go see for yourself. Splendid. Splendid, yes. Many of the temples, well, we went to Kanyakumari, and a place called Pakshi Tirtha, mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where 2 eagles have been coming since time immemorial every day to take some Mahaprasadam. But the day that we went, they didn't show. Many of these temples are situated on high peaks, and you can walk 100 steps, you can walk 500 steps, you can walk 1,000 steps to reach the deity. And it creates quite a meditation as you're walking up, and quite a reminder the next day in your calf muscles.
Yeah, you're already doing Padayatra and then all of this.
Padayatra is easy compared to going up 1,000 steps. The many places in Tamil Nadu, there are temples practically every mile or every half mile. There's so many temples. We're familiar with some of the big temples, but there are many, many temples, and they're all like with these ornate gopurams and built something like forts. But in the present day, they're mostly neglected. They would have farmland for the deity. They would have a source of income. They would have many Brahmins associated with the temple. But now things have deteriorated. Land has been sold. Brahmins are, they've gone on to write code for Google or take some other form of work. And you see the temples very much neglected, unclean, and sleeping pujari who wakes up to do an arti when some pilgrim comes, but sort of dilapidated and things in a sorry state. So for all, that's Kali Yuga. In Kali, the temple worship was performed in the Dwapara Yuga. That was the main method of worship. So they would have grand temples and grand worship, and everything would be on a grand scale. But in Kali Yuga, no one wants to do the worship. No one wants to support the temples. It's all seen as less important. So in the Kali Yuga, Kalo Tadhari Kirtanat, Krishna Kirtan is recommended. Doesn't cost anything, nothing to maintain, and effective. So what was achieved in previous ages, Ankritaya Jyayato Vishnu, Tretaya Myajato Makai, Dvarpaya Paricharyayan Kalo Tadhari Kirtana. What you would get in Satya Yuga by meditation, in Treta Yuga by yajna, in Dwapara Yuga by temple worship, we can get in Kali Yuga by Hari Kirtan. We visited the temple of Adikeshava in Kerala also, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found Brahma Samhita, and the Brahmins were very friendly there also. Very nice place. In Orissa, of course, Jagannath Mandir was there. Jagannath Puri was. It was interesting. While we were approaching, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went on pilgrimage going down from Bengal. We took the same route as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but went in the opposite direction. So at the end, we reached Mayapur by the time of the anniversary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's 500th appearance. So as we were coming north toward Puri, the rumor was going around that the foreigners were going to invade the Jagannath temple, that we were coming, in strength, and we were going to invade the sacred temple of Lord Jagannath. So the Pandas, the Brahmins, mentioned in the text here, formed a Sri Jagannath Dev Protection Committee, I think it was called. And they were ready to guard Lord Jagannath against the invading foreigners. And at the same time, there was a political leader. Now, what was his name? Very important political leader in Orissa. He'd been one of the freedom fighters for Indian independence. His name escapes me right now. Yes? Subhash Chandra Bose. No, he's Bengali, first of all. And he was dead, so he wasn't doing anything at the time. No. I think, in fact, they've named the airport after this person, the Bhubaneswar airport. I'll remember after the class is over. Anyway, at that time, he had retired from political office and was running a newspaper. And he was, greatly respected person. He began great memorials to the effect that the foreign devotees should be allowed in the Jagannath temple, allowed to enter. So he... Rajnarayan? No. No, Odia, politician. It's sort of there floating around in the gray matter, but the gray matter's pretty gray today. Anyway, he wrote, Biju Patanaik, thank you. Biju Patanaik. So, he'd run an editorial and then they'd read a rebuttal and he'd give lots of space to their rebuttal. And then he would rebut their rebuttal in the next issue, give a lot of space, like full, more and more. It was like a great controversy. They'd write something, he'd write something, they'd write. And it was good because it was mostly like similar reasons to Srila Prabhupada that he should not be made Odiyanath, he's Jagannath. And very good arguments. So it was great seeing this as we're walking every day, every day 20 kilometers or so closer, and every day there's another editorial, and tension is building, and so on. So finally we reached Puri, and we came with our army, and with kartals and mridanga, and circumambulated the temple and had kirtan, and meanwhile there were pandas at the gates glaring at us, and so we had kirtan, and that was it. And then in the evenings we would have Jagannath Prasadam and so on. It was notable that Srila Prabhupada has made Lord Jagannath famous all over the world. He's instituted worship of Jagannath all over the world. He's introduced the Jagannath Ratha Yatra all over the world. So in Ranganath, in Rangakshetra, the South Indian Brahmins received the devotees with Purna Kumbha, welcome. In all of the big temples in Varanasi, every place, the devotees were welcome. And only in Puri were we told that no, Hindus only. Hare Krishna. Remuna was a notable place. The Brahmins were so friendly in Remuna, the place of Kshirjor, Gopinath. And there were many places, big and small. So many. And some we couldn't find. Sometimes there'd be more than one candidate for being the place. You didn't know which one it was. Sometimes no one knew where the place was, but mostly they were findable.
Have you been back to any of them since '86?
Yeah, Tirupati I've been to a number of times. I think Pandharpur I may have been more than once. It's also a special place. And Maharashtra, Rukmini and Vittal. And the saint of Maharashtra, principal saint, Tukaram, whose method of teaching was essentially kirtan. Sometimes it's said that he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or that he was initiated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But in any case, his method is bhakti and kirtan. And in the temple of Vittal, the abhishek of the deity, the daily bathing of the deity is performed openly. And one can, if I remember, touch the feet of the deity also. But in any case, they maybe not, but you can sit and watch the abhishek. And there's one Ekadasi where millions of people come. I forget which Ekadasi that is. Kaun sa? Akshadi Ekadasi. Must have another name also. I've forgotten. But so many people come. And if you want to get to see the deity that day, huge crowds. You'll stand in the queue for hours and hours. And people do, and they're very happy. They're chanting Vittala, Vittala, Vittala. And they're, waiting as part of the experience. But you'll wait for a long time. But the next day you can just walk in the temple.
Hare Krishna. You said that in Kali Yuga the means of going at spiritual life is the Sankirtan movement. So when we read the scriptures, we see all the qualities, the symptoms, the realizations that come when we practice that path correctly. I was wondering, to what extent should we be patient that these things will come to us, and to what extent should we endeavor, if we see that those things don't come, maybe change our strategy or try to deepen our practice?
Well, how patient should we be? We should be unlimitedly patient. Asha Bandha, as mentioned by Maharaj this morning, we should hope against hope that the result will be there. Or we should be confident that because I'm following the right process, I'm sure that the result will come. That's mentioned in Prabhupada's writings in Rupa Goswami. That because I'm following the correct process, I'm confident that sooner or later the result will come. So on the one side, utsaha, we should be enthusiastic. Srila Prabhupada said in an early lecture that I'm very happy to say that Mr. such and such, I forget his name, Phil or Robert or somebody, said to me, Swamiji, I want to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. I want to go. It's expressing eagerness. And Prabhupada approved, yes, this is, we should be eager, utsaha, enthusiastic, and at the same time patient. That enthusiasm doesn't guarantee a spot on the, what do they call that? The speedy queue, Doesn't mean that I'll go at once, but And Prabhupada gave the example that if a girl is married and then the next day she says, well, I'm married, where's my child? Well, be patient. The child will come. So we have to be patient but enthusiastic. And if we see that our progress is slow, then we can examine and say, am I doing something wrong? Vyasadeva, he wrote so many books, but he was feeling dissatisfied. I've written so many books, I'm not satisfied. So then he asked his Guru Maharaj, Narad Muni, this is the situation. So then Narad instructed him, yes, you're not satisfied because you haven't glorified Krishna. What do you expect? You've written all these books that just agitate people's minds. Talk of the heavenly planets and pious activities and all of that. Now just write something focused on Krishna. So that's Bhagavatam. So sometimes we may inquire, why am I not making progress? Or by introspection we may ask ourselves, am I doing something? Am I committing offenses? Am I just sort of coasting and not, am I complacent, sort of going with what is, sort of taking a pedestrian approach to Krishna consciousness, plodding along without life. So then we may see that yes, some correction is needed. Or Srila Prabhupada encouraged us to do things like come to Vrindavan every year. And as we've heard, recharge our batteries. We're out there slugging it out in the cities of America, Europe, and Australia, and so on. And the atmosphere may not be so encouraging. So we come to Vrindavan, we come to Mayapur, and everything is encouraging. Prabhupada, one time he was walking in Mayapur, and he was saying that we should grow our own wheat and make our own chapatis from that. Prabhupada in Mayapur, Prabhupada said, even the dust will help us. Even the dust will help us. And Prabhupada said about Vrindavan, it's the one place in the universe where Krishna automatically reveals. So we come to Vrindavan, we associate with the devotees, we take darshan of Krishna Balaram, we are reminded of so many activities of Krishna, and we get new inspiration. So so we should do that as far as possible, take advantage of the opportunity to come to Vrindavan, come to Mayapur, get inspiration. Or sometimes we may just change our scene, spend some time in some other venue. Not whimsically, Prabhupada didn't appreciate that at all, that someone's feeling dissatisfied and he gives up his service and goes someplace else, then gives that up and goes to the next place. But sometimes in consultation with our authorities or our advisors, we may say, all right, some break or some change may be enlivening. A Grasta men may travel with a sannyasi for some time, or married devotees may visit some holy places, or visit temples, or we have our festivals in different places in different countries. Our devotees get some inspiration. Or you may go on the book distribution marathon in December and get totally enlivened. So there are various things that you can do. Is that okay? Something else. Krishna, 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 Krishna.
really small thing. Just that Bhima had so much animosity toward Duryodhana when Duryodhana slapped his thigh when Draupadi was being mistreated. He said, come sit on my lap. And at that time, Bhima swore to break his thigh. And yet it seemed like a last resort when they were fighting. It feels like your whole energy was like, I'm going to break that thigh. And then he had to be reminded of it at the end of the fight. I just thought that was seemed like that would be the first place he'd go, Day one, that thigh that you slapped for Draupadi, I'm breaking that first.
Well, that was against the rules.
But he vowed. He vowed. He said, I'm going to break your thigh.
Yeah, but first you can defeat him and then you can break his thigh. But, hitting below the belt was contrary to the rules. So you didn't do it until finally Krishna indicated this is what you have to do. Another thought about, did I mention this the other day? These going on pilgrimage is a good option sometimes when things aren't going well. Because we hear about destiny, and you can't fight City Hall, and destiny, things are sometimes just destined to go a certain way. And sometimes when you see the hand of destiny working that way, pilgrimage may be a good option. I did talk about this. Vidura went on pilgrimage. We just saw that this was the hand of destiny. I was the prime minister here. I was the honored brother of the king, and now I'm being insulted and threatened. So let me just leave. And he took it as an opportunity and went on pilgrimage, and his whole life changed. So this pilgrimage, going on pilgrimage, can be first of all an escape from difficult and unchangeable situations, whatever those might be. Forget it, I can't do anything about this, let me just go on pilgrimage. Balaram also, I can't fight in the Kurukshetra war, forget it, I'm just going to go on pilgrimage. So sometimes it's a very good option, rather than, as we say, beating our heads against the wall, trying to change something that destiny won't allow to be changed. And take advantage of the opportunity. Nothing I can do anyway. Let me go on pilgrimage. And then instead of being frustrated, we become purified and enlivened. You get spiritual insight. So it can be a powerful thing to do. Whatever it is, whether it's a political situation, a family situation, whatever, go on pilgrimage. And this practice of going on pilgrimage is spiritually purifying. You're thinking about the place where you're going, whether it's to see Lord Venkateshwara or to see Lord Jagannath, or to see Lord Ranganath, or whoever it may be, to visit this place visited by Lord Balaram, to visit this place visited by Lord Krishna and the sages, to visit this place where Lord Ramchandra had his pastimes. We visited those places also, the Ayodhya and the other places associated with Lord Ramchandra. And we can go to these places and be purified. Anything else? Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You said that Krishna reveals himself. You said that... Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Yeah.
Let's
You said, yeah. You said that Krishna reveals himself easily in Vrindavan. How does he do that?
As he chooses. And then I just said it's the one place in the universe where Krishna automatically reveals. That's what Prabhupada said. Didn't say reveals himself. He can do that in Vrindavan also. But you're trying to figure something out, you can't figure it out. You want to know what to do, you don't know what to do. And Krishna can reveal. Prabhupada explained. He said he was walking, this was the day after the installation of Krishna Balaram here in Vrindavan. Prabhupada was walking on his daily walk down the road, and he was in a very pleased mood. After so much trouble, the Krishna Balaram were now installed. And he told the story how he said that Krishna was flattering Balaram. My dear brother, all of these trees are bowing down to offer their respects to you. These drones are all great sages. The bees, they're just chanting your glories. I told a little of that. Then Prabhupada said that he'd installed Gaura and Krishna Balaram to make the point that there's no difference between Gaura and Krishna Balaram. Brajendra Nandana Jai, Shachi Shuddha Iloshe, Balaram Hoilunatai. So Prabhupada said, if you ever have any difficulty, you can go before Gaura or Krishna Balaram and say, sir, this is the problem. And they will do the needful. Is that okay?
Hare Krishna. So when we cannot control our situation, we can see more the destiny aspect of it, we said. And in Bhagavad-Gita we see that we actually don't have control over anything. So it's very easy then for us to say, oh, it's destiny, oh, it's Krishna's will. But that makes us sort of take a back seat in our own lives and makes us become passive.
In one sense, it's good to be passive. That is to say, instead of thinking, what do I want to do next, what do I want to do next, to think, what does Krishna want of me? When Lord Brahma was born, he was thinking how to create the universe. So he prayed to the Lord to get the inspiration to do it as the Lord wanted it done. He wasn't thinking, well, what do I want to do? He was thinking, what does Krishna want me to do? What is my duty? So that's the real thing. Why do I have to be, I want to do this, I want to do that. What does Krishna want from me? So how do I know that? I know that from the spiritual master's instructions, from the words of the sadhus, from the words of the shastras, and so on. Some inspiration. So rather than asserting my own will, good, let me be malleable to Krishna's will. What does Krishna want from me? So that I can be, Krishna told Arjuna, nimitta matra, bhava sabyasachi, just become my instrument. So if we can become instruments of Krishna, then our life is a great success. Apart from that, in the immediate context you asked about, how do I know if I should just pack it in and go? So therefore, the guidance of those we trust, the spiritual master, the sadhus, our own introspection, should try to see that we're not just being whimsical or opportunistic. Here's a good way to get out of a service I don't like to do. But that we're doing something of it samatha pumsa, something approved by the self-realized persons. Then okay? should we have some kirtan? I see the mridanga is getting wrapped up.
I liked the tune this morning. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Ashto Saraswati Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Jayadvaita Gadadhar Srimad Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giti Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Shamanamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.